Should you adjust your retirement plans now that Trump has won the election? Or should I say Harris has won the election? I don't know because we're recording this show prior to the election. And I did that on purpose because I want to point out, what I really mean is that there's no difference between my advice in this scenario, irrespective of who wins. It doesn't matter who wins. The advice would be the same. And that is, should you adjust your plans based on an election? Let me bring in my co-host, Tony Shore. Tony, we have an election coming up. It's a national election for President of the United States, as you know.
What?
And
I had no idea.
And I know a lot of people have strong opinions on this, and they are making financial moves based on it.
Wow.
And so the question is, should they be doing that? And what should people be doing with their finances leading up to and immediately after an election for president?
Wow. Well, yeah, I know what my feelings are, and that is I can't wait for it to be over and stop getting texts from Trump and from Harris campaigns. Well, we've been talking in the minute and 1 minute, 20 seconds we've been doing the show today, Dan. I've probably gotten 2 texts, one from Harris, one from Trump campaign asking for money.
We did a show, and I'll put it up here for the listeners on the viewers. On scams and financial scams and how seniors in particular get scammed. So lesson learned, Tony, don't give out your cell phone number to anybody.
It is a lesson learned. It is a lesson learned. I am on every list. I swear it's not good.
So let me share some stats with you, Tony, that I think are pretty profound. Here's a link. It's an Investopedia article for those that are watching on YouTube. The title of it is "Investors' Election Year Worries Could Be Overblown," experts say. So this was October, I think. I don't even know what year it was. It doesn't really matter, but it's the upcoming election for the Trump Harris. And some of the stats are pretty crazy. So here's one that I want to start with. It's a nationwide survey, by the way. 68% of Republican and 57% of Democrat investors think the election outcome will have an immediate and direct impact on their finances. So they feel, all right, this election's going to impact me in some way. And I have a feeling the Republican and Democrat investors have different opinions as to what that immediate impact will be, depending on who wins, right?
Of course, yeah.
Breaking this down further, 31% think if the party they don't support wins, their financial performance will be negatively affected. So if Trump doesn't win, we're going to go to hell in a handbasket. If Harris doesn't win, we're going to go to hell in a handbasket, right? So that's what people are thinking. And a third of the people think this.
Yeah.
Right.
And I hate to laugh, and I don't mean to laugh at people who think that, but the administration doesn't affect the markets directly.
No.
That in that way that people think. I mean,
right.
Yeah. I mean, if you look back, I'm sure you have a stat of the last 100 years of presidential elections.
I do. I'm going to share that. But you're right. I mean, think about it. The president doesn't impact the market per se,
stock market,
but the volatility increases right up to and immediately after a presidential election.
Oh, sure.
Stock
it's volatile.
goes crazy, right?
Yeah.
But what does get impacted is the broader picture, the broader economy. And 32% of investors say they think the economy will tank within a year of this year's election.
Yeah.
Again, doesn't say Democrat or Republican wins. They just say a third think it's going to tank within the year. And that's probably going to be the case that probably has been the case since 2009. Every year people have been saying economy is going to tank because they got burned back in the day, and they still say it's going to tank. There's always someone saying that, out there on the street corner.
Sure.
I used to work in Manhattan, and you see it. I don't think you've seen it on TV. Have you seen this where there's like someone standing on a street corner preaching about the world is going to end? Have you? Is that start? It's true. I haven't seen it in a while, but there were people that were just shouting stuff, I would ignore them like most New Yorkers would. But, you know, there's always people shouting on CNBC or Fox Business or whatever, we're going to tank, right? And so a lot of
Yeah.
people mimic that. 45% of investors think the outcome of November's election will have a larger impact on their retirement goals and portfolios than market performance. Now, this is a key one I want to focus on. So, at first blush, you say, wow, almost half of people think that the election is going to have a bigger impact on their retirement than the actual performance of the market. And part of me says that's ridiculous. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We know the long term, like the market's going to have a bigger impact on your retirement. But then part of me says this is great because people are realizing market performance shouldn't be the main driver of your retirement dreams and goals. The overall situation that you're in, including what the direction of the country, should be a big factor in your retirement. So
That's a
I'm
good
starting
point.
to see,
That's a
right?
good point. Yeah, I
Um,
mean, if you have everything that you need for retirement, every dime that you need for income in retirement in the market, then that statement is crazy because obviously market performance is going to have a larger impact on your retirement goals.
right,
But you shouldn't have 100% of your retirement income in the market at risk at that
right,
point,
right.
right? Is
So
what you're saying. Yeah.
right. So they're thinking election has a bigger impact. And I want to dive a little deeper. Well, what do you think they mean by that? And I don't know if this survey is very good at drawing that out, but there's some more stats that I want from this article. Of the investors who are close to retirement, which is what I focus on. I'm focused on people close to retirement as a
55
general rule.
plus. Yeah.
Right. And some people retire at 55, Tony. So not everyone's going to work till 65, 70 like you're going to do.
Yeah.
But also not everyone's going to live to 120 like you do. Benjamin Button's over here. So of the investors who are close to retirement, roughly, so we're talking 55 to 65, half are concerned about a potential of a recession. Now, as it relates to the election, some of those will say we're going to have a recession if so and so wins, right? So I think that they're conflating that. I think though half of people saying there's going to be a recession, I believe that those people think there's going to be a recession regardless of who wins. A lot of them will
Yeah.
think there's just going to, because we haven't had the recession. We've had a soft landing. Did we bypass the recession that we were supposed to have? Weren't we supposed to have a recession in 21 or 20?
Yep.
We
Yeah.
had a bad year in 21, but was it a
22
recession?
22 was the bad year.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it a recession though? Was it, like
No. It was a market correction.
right. But maybe people saying we're in a recession, right? So so they're going beyond just who's going to win. They're saying overall the economy is going to go down. Here's another one. Inflation, right? 66 of both retirees and near retirees are expressing concern as compared to 61% of overall investors regarding inflation. But still, 61% overall think inflation concerns are a big, big part of this. And so,
I think I would agree.
yes,
I think
if you,
inflation is the one thing that I'm like, okay, that's a legitimate concern and policies affect it, but not necessarily in the short term. Like,
right,
the day after, if
right,
Harris gets
November,
elected,
right,
the day after she gets elected, is the country within that year, is the country going to tank, or are we going to see
right,
inflation spike? No. Economies are inherited, they say. I'm going to point that out. Like, and this is to help both parties out here. You really inherit economies as a president, and that's why my whole point, maybe this is the conclusion, but the market, at least when we're talking about the stock market, it doesn't care who's in office, right? I mean, the stock
right.
market,
Well,
those companies' job is to make profits for their shareholders, and they're really good at it. The top companies are really good at it. They do it consistently, and that's why the market does well no matter who's president. I mean, we have down years, sure, but it's 1 year out of a 4-year presidency, and it has nothing to do with the party that's in office.
right. A lot
Yeah.
of the
But inflation,
sensational political issues are not economic related, but some
Right.
are. But you're
Like
right.
inflation is
Right.
a
It
concern.
is, right? And so, but you're right. If Trump wins, will the inflation go down the next day or go
Mhm.
up the next day? No, but policies set by the president should impact inflation over time. But I would argue that neither candidate is good for inflation. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that neither candidate has proven to me, or actually has proven otherwise, that they are going to reduce spending, increasing the amount of debt we have, and adding more money to the economy, printing it, which is what causes inflation.
Right.
Um, Neither candidate, neither political party has proven that they can solve that problem. So I would say
In my
inflation,
58 years.
right,
Yeah.
right. So a third thing we're going to have um, a collapse based on this election. 2/3 think we're going to have an inflation problem, which means both parties are in agreement here. We have an
Well,
inflation
yeah,
problem.
we have an inflation is tough right now, or had been, especially. But the thing, it doesn't matter which party, like you say. I agree with you, Dan, because in my lifetime, I have yet to see an administration go in and cut spending.
Right? You don't. They
Politicians,
say they cut spending,
yeah, they
so
do not cut spending.
instead of increasing spending 200%, we increase spending only 190%. So therefore, we're decreasing spending.
Yes, that's the political, that's
Right?
actually the double speak they use.
It's
That's how they get
crazy.
away with it. Like, and
Absolutely
during
not.
my administration, we cut spending by 20%. No, you didn't increase it by the 200%
Right?
that you said that that everyone said we needed to, yeah, they don't
Exactly.
cut spending ever. I mean,
So,
it's
so
just
people's concern about inflation and a recession are valid, and so therefore, voting, uh, the idea is voting for president should help shape that in the future, which I don't disagree with, but it's not an immediate reaction, and the volatility isn't a result of that. The
right.
volatility is a result of some other issues, which I'll get to in a second. So the question is, should you adjust your portfolio based on the election results or leading up to the election? So here's some more stats for you. 33% of near retirees report they'll manage their portfolios more conservatively because of what they expect to happen in November. So this is a third of people saying, "Well, you know what? I don't like the volatility associated with the presidential election, so I'm going to be a little bit more conservative leading up to this election based on, or if she wins or he wins, I'm going to reduce my volatility." That seems like that should be something you're doing anyway, is becoming a little bit more conservative based on your retirement, not based on the election. I think people have, you know, but people are saying, well, the election's going to make it. I remember, what was it? It was Trump Clinton 2016.
Mhm.
I remember this was a time when I actually had some really difficult conversations with clients about election and investing. And I did lose some clients. Normally, I have these conversations every 4 years and it's no big deal. But that one in particular was really much even worse than today, was a tough one because I had some people that said, if Trump wins, the market's going to tank. If Clinton wins, the market's going to tank. I had both of these. And I had some people actually pull out their money, much against my recommendation, and just come out of the market and say, if Trump wins, we're going to lose a lot of money, so I'm out. And sure enough, Trump won, and then the market raged, and they missed out on that, and then they fittered away and said, they're not going to work with me anymore. And part of me is to blame to say I should have been able to talk them off that ledge, and I can normally talk people off the ledge, but on that case, I couldn't, and they lost out as a result.
Oh,
Now, if
yeah.
the reversed happened,
Very
I would
expensive
still lose them
mistake.
as a client because they said, "See, I told you, and you told me to stay in. I'm glad I didn't listen to you." Right? So, I don't think that people should be getting more conservative leading up to election just because of the election. It should be because of their retirement.
Their
Again,
own personal situation.
yes,
We're
yes,
talking in generalities, and I know you aren't giving any specific advice to people, but you're saying, hey, don't make emotional decisions, is what we're
right,
talking about,
right.
right? Yeah.
And here's another interesting stat that I found surprising: 12% of near retirees and 4% overall responded that they intend to become more aggressive leading up to election day. So those people who are like, "Ooh, right? The election's coming. There's going to be volatility. This is my chance, right?
Yeah.
But I was surprised that near retirees are going to be that. Usually it's the reverse. That's also to say 88% of near retirees aren't doing that. But here's the thought, Tony. You got this election coming up, and you might be saying, well, the economy is going to do bad or worse, right, over time. And that's going to slow moving. But there's some things that could move quicker. And that's going to be sectors or industries or different. Well, as an example, cryptocurrency. A lot of the talk on cryptocurrency is that if Harris wins, cryptocurrency is going to go down because regulation is going to go up on that. Whereas if Trump wins, cryptocurrency is going to go up. So you might see an extended or extra volatility in the cryptocurrency space leading up to this election, because the cryptocurrency space is nascent, relatively speaking, and regulation's a big part of it. So this election result will change regulation policy potentially, and therefore cryptocurrency investors are going to have more immediate reaction because they are anticipating policy changes that are going to come quickly.
But we don't know those things are going to happen.
We don't know that, but you could say the same about energy, green energy versus, fossil fuels.
Sure.
You can say the same thing about different the financial services industry,
different sectors,
right? And so can you play that game? And then in that case, I would hearken back to last week's show where we talked. You don't even remember what we talked about last week's show, do you? The lost decade.
Decade. Then Japan.
No, not Japan. Not get off Japan. Lost decade. So if you haven't seen that last week's show, it's up here. I'll put it up for you, viewers on YouTube. It was a great one. It was about how Goldman Sachs has said the next 10 years, 2025 to 2035, are going to be a lost decade where stock market returns are going to be exceedingly lower. Notice in that show, we didn't talk about the election because Goldman Sachs wasn't saying we're going to have a lost decade because Trump is going to win or Trump's going to lose or Harris is going to, right? It was just, we're going to have it. So in that show, it was diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I would say the same thing about this. If you want to try and hit a home run, put all your stuff in cryptocurrency and hope Trump wins, what will happen? You'll do that and Trump will win, and then it'll go down and you'll be like, wow, that didn't work. You can't, it's a losing game. It's a fool's errand to try and pick the winners and losers based on an election is the goal here, is the message.
Right.
And the reality, as you pointed out, Tony, stock markets are generally great in years. I'll put the stats up.
Yeah,
here.
Put the stat up. This is amazing. This is the stat that I read that people need to hear this stat over the last, 100 years since 1928.
1928, the S&P 500 has shown positive returns in 20 of the 24 elections years.
Presidential election years.
Right. And average return during those election years was 11.58%, which is higher than the S&P's average return. So the S&P does better in election years now.
Right. In presidential election years. Yeah.
Presidential election years.
Yeah.
So let's look at 2024. The S&P 500 is up close to 20% right now.
Yeah.
This is before the election.
Yeah.
And the average is 11.5. So should we expect to see a 9.5% drop? You see, you could go both ways. It's like, well, maybe we'll revert, but it's all averages. It's all, and who knows, right? The statistics show that when a Democrat wins and a Republican Congress, it goes up. If a Republican wins and a Democrat Congress, it goes up. Guess what happens in all the other combinations? It goes up.
Yeah.
The market goes up.
It does the best. It does the best when, forget about who's the president. It does the best when the House and Senate are opposite, when there's a gridlock.
Yes.
The market, if you're looking at the stock market, it loves gridlock. So if one party controls all three sectors of government, that's when the market negatively reacts typically. But it really doesn't care if you look at it doesn't care who's president. The market doesn't care. And the people who pull their money out thinking, oh my gosh, if Harris wins, I'm going to pull all my money out, or vice versa. If Trump wins, I'm pulling everything out. Then they're going to lose out because there might be volatility right after the election. They say, see, but then when it sets record highs a year later, their
Right.
money is out, and they missed on that
Right.
they missed that whole upswing, right?
And the market might go down, and everyone will say, you fools, you should have told people to get out. But we can't,
No.
because and the reason why,
Based
like,
on what?
if you're close to retirement, right? Based on what? Based on your plan. Well,
Based on
I don't have a plan. I'm
based
going
on your
based on
emotions is all
emotion,
there.
right? I'm going
Yeah.
based on the heat of the moment,
Yeah.
right?
And that's
Um,
why there's volatility after an election, is
right,
because of these stats, because people panic. You'll see the market do something, because no matter who gets in, all the other people, my guy or gal in this case didn't get in. I'm pulling all my money. Well, that affects the stock. That's
right,
what drives
right,
the volatility. If the people didn't care, the market doesn't care, but it's people's emotions that have caused these blips
right.
before and after an election, right?
And so you should have your plan set prior to. You should have a legitimate reason outside the election to be doing what you're doing.
Well, you should have a
Right,
financial professional who's a fiduciary, who's going to look out for your best interest, telling you what you need to do, not what you want to do or your emotions tell you. You should push aside the elections and say, here are my goals for retirement. Here's how close I am. Where should my money be
right.
allocated? And then,
And okay,
the election will have that won't have anything to do with that.
it will change other things, and the election will
Yeah.
have policy changes as a result.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the ones that impact
It's important.
retirees are different than the ones that impact people in their 20s. So taxes will change. So here's Social Security will potentially change. Now, this again, and we did a show on Social Security and how I said Biden's going to be the one to change Social Security, and as a lame duck. So I knew this going in, that he's not going to be running again. I said after the fact that Harris was the Democrat nominee, I said Biden has a chance to change Social Security because he's got nothing to lose. It's looking like a really, really, really long shot now, but
Yeah.
there's still hope. I
I
still
don't
think
think
he would
that'll
be
happen
great.
myself, but maybe.
It would be great. He would go down in history pulling a lame duck, major change like that. But the Trump Harris election is going to result in policy changes. One that's immediate that people should understand: the Trump tax cuts end in 2025. So
Yeah.
2026, we might not have those tax cuts, and people should know that, because if you're thinking about it, we know when they're going to expire. Now, if Trump wins, do you think he's going to expire them, or he's going to continue them? If Harris wins, she most likely will get rid of them. So knowing that, retirees should be able to still take advantage of planning now based on that. Now, what if you plan to take some Roth conversions or do some taxation plays now based on that, and then it changes? It's not the end of the world. You adjust then. It's a lot easier to adjust to a policy change than it is to an election, because a policy change takes time, takes Congress, and it actually will be something that you can then be strategic about.
Yeah, and
Whereas
you've got 1
election,
year yet before they
right?
have to do something.
You usually have some time. Now, tax
Yeah.
changes can be retroactive, but or estate planning, these types of things that are bigger picture. Yeah, that's why you go out and vote, because your president will impact those in some way. He'll push Congress to do something, but it's not going to be overnight, which is what I think a lot of people look at and they say, "Oh my God, the election overnight." They get all wrapped up in it, and they shouldn't. Again, like you said, it's more emotional. And I'm going to go to conclude, Tony. I'm going to go back 2,000 years to my buddy Marcus Aurelius.
Ah.
Stoicism.
I'm like, 2,000 years, are we gonna talk about Jesus on the show
Well,
today?
yeah, it's the same time frame.
It is.
If you rely on data instead of your gut instinct, you're better off. Right? So we have data that shows markets do well in all sorts of conditions. So, but don't try and get that gut instinct. Oh my God, if he wins, I'm going to lose my lid. I'm going to sell everything, and I'm going to move. How many times did we hear I'm going to move to Europe
Canada
if Trump
or
wins? And that didn't happen,
yeah.
right?
No.
So people get sensational about. Don't let that change and drive your financial decision. So what happens isn't good or bad. A Harris win isn't good or bad. A Trump win isn't good or bad. How you respond matters. Your reaction matters more. So That's my lesson here. It's very, very basic. It's very stoic, based on the principle of stoicism. It's not what happens, it's how you respond that matters. So same with financial planning. Things happen. Don't get bent out of shape. Adjust your plan. And if you don't have a plan, get one so that you're not doing based on emotions. That's it. That's all I got to say about it, Tony. And you know what's funny is by the time many of you are watching this, you'll already know who the president is, and it doesn't change the guidance. Doesn't change the guidance, right?
Yeah.
This will be released prior to the election, but you know, we got people watching on videos from 2, 3, 5 years ago, Tony. So you never know.
Yeah, true.
Well, thanks for a good show, Tony. Make sure did you vote yet? Did you do early voting? I have not.
I don't. I vote morning of every year.
Me too. It's a tradition. Hopefully there's no bad weather here in Florida.
I like to go down and vote. It's literally a few blocks from my house and my home studio here. So it's,
So go out and complete your civic duty and don't panic. All right? We'll catch
panic.
everyone next week.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.